Welcome back, guys. This is video 2 looking at question 3d on the Weimar and Nazi Germany paper. That's paper 3 for the Edexcel History GCSE. In my previous video, we looked at how to break down the how far do you agree question on the Germany paper. We spoke about how you've got to make a judgment first of all, and how you really need to either say that you mostly agree, mostly disagree, partially agree, partially disagree, balance your language basically. You've got to do that in the very first part of your answer. I then walked you through how to write your S paragraph of JSOC. This is where you support the interpretation that is identified in the question, in this case, interpretation 2. So this is where we talk about what the interpretation is telling us. We provide quotes to prove that, and we also include our own knowledge of the historical period in order to support the interpretation. This video, however, is going to show you how to do the second half of the answer to this. So we've already, if we look back at my example, just zoom out a bit, we've already gone through the introduction, okay? I've then shown you this supportive paragraph that sort of works in direct links in blue, direct links to the interpretation, and then support from my own knowledge in green. And you can see it's kind of littered all the way through it. What we now need to do is to give the other side of the story. Now, remember, I've already said that I mostly agree with interpretation 2. So throughout this opposition paragraph, I also need to be talking about how this is true, but I still don't think it's as big a challenge as hyperinflation. So even though I'm giving the opposite view, I need to constantly be trying to find a way to kind of tear it down, okay, and make it seem like it's not as good an argument. So again, I've got blue for direct links to the interpretations. I've got green for where I'm going to add my own knowledge. And then I've got black for where I am referencing my criteria. What I mean by that is anywhere where I am saying exactly why I don't believe other challenges were as important as hyperinflation, I'm going to colour that with my black pen, okay? So I've got my 3 pens ready. Let's talk through what we've got here. So we're going to start with however, because we're giving a contrasting view now. And the question states that we must use both interpretations. So the best way of giving an opposing view to interpretation 2 in this case is to use interpretation 1. All right, but again, we've got to use our own knowledge to support it. So let's see how we do. So, however, as interpretation 1 makes clear, there were other challenges faced by the Weimar government during this time. It's not just hyperinflation. It is my belief, though, that and this is criteria, isn't it? It's my belief, though, that these other challenges were narrower in nature and not as impactful, as they didn't affect the entirety of the population in the same way that hyperinflation did. So I'm going to colour that black. What I'm doing here, I'm making it really clear that while I understand there's an opposite side, I don't think it's as impactful as hyperinflation. I've given a reason why. I've said because those other challenges were narrower. They didn't affect the entire population like hyperinflation did. So this is my criteria, isn't it? I'm working it into my argument here. I'm saying, yes, there are other challenges, but they're not as significant as hyperinflation, and here's why. Interpretation 1 discusses how one significant challenge was that posed by political groups. And then I've got a quote here. Political groups on both the left and right. Again, direct link to the interpretation. This is, of course, true early on in the Weimar government's rule, as we see violent revolutions attempted by the Spartacists and from a more right-wing source in the Cat Putsch. So again, I'm backing this up with my own knowledge here. This must have been a challenge to the government, as it required drastic action in both the Spartacist uprising and the Cat Putsch to stop the overthrow of the government. So I could go further there if I wanted. I could talk about how Ebert forced strike action and things like this, but I'm limited for time, so I've decided not to do that. Interpretation 1 then is entirely accurate when it states that, so I've probably got a quote coming up here. Interpretation 1 then is entirely accurate when it states that this instability made it difficult for the new government to maintain order. So again, I'm talking about the interpretation, I'm giving quotes, saying what it's telling me, and supporting with my own knowledge throughout. We can again see this in 1923 with the Munich Putsch. So some of my own knowledge. However, in this case, we can see the impact of the hyperinflation crisis, our true challenge to Weimar, as if it weren't for hyperinflation, the Nazis may not have felt public support for the putsch was as high as they did. So, again, referring to my criteria, I keep going back to why I think hyperinflation is more significant than these other challenges. Okay, here, keep going back to it. So I'm giving the opposite side, saying there are other challenges, but they're not as important as hyperinflation, and here's why. In this case, even the Munich Putsch, one of the key causes of the Munich Putsch was the hyperinflation crisis. So where we've got political uprisings, this one, hyperinflation is partly the cause. So it's obviously more important than things like the Putsch. We also see challenges presented by Dolchstoss. Okay, so I'm giving some own knowledge here again. Stab in the back theory, and a fairly unstable constitution. So I'm giving other challenges here, aren't I, that aren't in the interpretations. However, the government manages to survive these challenges. It isn't until the hyperinflation crisis that the government is forced to make sweeping changes with the help of Stresemann. So again, I'm just going to put a box around this. This whole section here and on the back of the page here, I'm again saying the government manages to survive the period where the constitution is weak, and we're seeing the Spartacists and the Cat Putsch and Dolchstoss theory being really prevalent. The government survives that. It's not until hyperinflation, with interpretation 2, that we see sweeping changes brought in by Stresemann. So again, I'm really doubling down on my argument and making it really clear just why I support interpretation 2 more than I do interpretation 1. Now, this last paragraph is going to be quite short because I've already scattered parts of my criteria throughout my argument. So I'm just going to double down on what I've already done here. This is where I really say, okay, ultimately, here's the deal. This is why I believe interpretation 2 more than I believe interpretation 1. Ultimately is a really good way of starting this. As both interpretations make clear, remember, you've got to talk about both, there were many challenges faced during this period. However, I believe the hyperinflation crisis to be the most significant as an interpretation 2, due to its far-reaching, so this is my criteria here, its far-reaching impact compared to other challenges. It could even be viewed, in the case of the Munich Putsch, to contribute to some of the other challenges discussed. So again, this is where I double down on my criteria and make it really clear why I support interpretation 2 more than I do interpretation 1. Okay. Now, that is all you need to do for this question. Now, it should really take you somewhere between 20 minutes to half an hour to do this question. I would suggest that if you spend half an hour on this, you are not wasting your time. You can get an awful lot of marks for this, 16 for the you also get 4 marks for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So it's really important that you spend a good deal of time on this question. And hopefully watching these videos has really helped you understand what it is that you've got to do. So you're basically having an argument with yourself here, but you have to refer to the interpretations, tell the examiner what they're all about, and then you must have a judgment. It's really important. You must decide where you stand and then have a reason for that. Okay, so that's your criteria. Have that reason for why you support or disagree with the interpretation mentioned in the question. If you've got any questions about this and I teach you, come and chat to me in my room, you know where I am, or drop me an email. Alternatively, leave some comments in the comment section and hopefully I can answer them for you. So that is question 3D on paper 3 of the Edexcel Germany paper. Take care and best of luck.